Akadosh, we're starting with the Agadah, so we have to remember a few things when we're speaking about the Kiddush. Remember especially that this year, what's going to happen is that the first cup of wine is actually going to be Kiddush, Havdalah, plus the first of the 4 kosot of wine. So therefore, you actually have to have that in mind, which means that you're having in mind that this cup that you're going to take is going to be a 3-for-1, not a 2-for-1 like last year. Because last year, the first night, I think, was on Friday night. So it was a 2-for-1, right? But it's a 3-for-1. What does it mean, 3-for-1? You got 3 in 1. You got Kiddush, Havdalah, and the first of the Arba Kosot. Because of that, we are obligated to do it at 100% nighttime. Remember that all the mitzvot have to be done at nighttime, right? We know that eating the matzah has to be done at nighttime. So therefore, since the eating of the matzah has to be done at nighttime, the Kiddush, which is juxtaposed, which is also just like the 4 kosot, so also the 4 kosot has to be done at nighttime. So therefore, this cup should be done after nightfall. Okay, so after nightfall, what? Why do you have a choice? You could always do it earlier, right? On Motzei Shabbat, you're allowed to do Havdalah earlier. Of course you could do Havdalah earlier. You're just not allowed to do Melacha, but you're allowed to do Havdalah, right? But here, the concept is that since it's part of the Arba Kosot, so since it's part of the 4 cups, just like the matzah has to be eaten at nighttime, so to the 4 kosot have to be done at nighttime. Kiddush is also the first of the 4 kosot, has to be done at nighttime. So that's why we said that Arvit, we're going to do it a little bit earlier, right? Arvit, we do it earlier. We don't do it Arvit at nighttime, right? Especially, the first night. The second night, we finish Arvit at nighttime to do Sefirat HaOmer. But the first night, we do it earlier. Earlier means that you're going to be getting home at nighttime. Okay, it's not that you're finishing here at nighttime. You're getting home at nighttime. Okay, 8:16. Okay, so fine. Now, how much do you have to drink exactly? Shulchan Aruch, if you remember, we already spoke about this in the halachot in the morning. So we said that you have to drink the majority of the cup, and and if there's a lot of reviyot, so therefore again, don't get yourself into a machlok. Okay, fine. Now, which cups do you make a bracha on? So very interestingly enough, we have to actually know that there's a machloket rishonim already. On which cups do we make the bracha on? Because, for example, right, there's the shita of the Rif, that the Rif wanted to say that you make a bracha on every single one of the 4 cups. And who actually does that? The Ashkenazim. Very good. The Rama, the Ashkenazim, they actually do that. They make a bracha on every single cup. So on every single cup, they're going to come, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu borei pri hagefen. That's what they do. Okay? And they bring a proof because the Gemara says every single cup is a mitzvah bifnei atzma. That we just learned that in Daf Yomi Kuftet Amud Bet. And therefore, since every single one is a mitzvah bifnei atzma, there was no chashash for zugot. If you remember the concept, what was the concept of zugot? You're not supposed to have pairs. 2, 4, 6, 8. So if you have 4 cups, right? How do you have 4 cups? 4 cups is pairs. So there in the Gemara, if you remember, we had a lot of answers. One of the answers was the cause of Bikat HaMazon, and there were 4 or 5 answers there in the Gemara. One of the answers was that each one on its own is a separate mitzvah. So if each one on its own is a separate mitzvah, says the Rif, you have to make a bracha on every single one. However, though, the Baal HaMaor argues on the Rif, and he says, right, that 1 second, why? If I made a bracha, the bracha, you make 1 bracha for everything, right? And that's what we do for everything. Shechita, right? We do shechita all the time, no? So what happens? You make 1 bracha, and you just continue going. One after another, right? All year round, yeah, all year round, right? Mezuzah, you're going to put mezuzot in your house. You make 1 bracha for the entire house. So you're going to start making a bracha on every single one. And that's what you do for everything. So therefore, the same thing. However, though, what do they want to say? They want to say there's a hefsek. Where's the hefsek? Birkat HaMazon. The Birkat HaMazon is a hefsek. Because once you come and you say that you don't want to eat anymore, and you say Birkat HaMazon, there's a hefsek. So according to that, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to do the first beracha, which that according to everybody you have to do, obviously, and only the third one. Because the third one is after Birkat HaMazon. So after Birkat HaMazon, you're going to do it, right? The opinions that hold that you're supposed to do it even for the second one is because the Agadah is a hefsek. Now, where do we see such a concept that the Agadah is a hefsek? We were just learning the Kolel, Ilchot, Borer, right? What are you allowed to separate or not separate on Shabbat? Let's say it would happen, right? I want to come and I want to separate for my meal. So I'm allowed to take things. I'm allowed to do borer for my meal. So I'm allowed to peel, right? Whether it's when talking about eggs, or I'm allowed to make a salad, or I'm allowed to separate one thing from another thing for immediate use, correct? Perfect. no problem. Am I allowed to separate before the meal, right, for the meal on the night of Pesach? And a lot of the poskim hold, I'm not allowed to. Why? Because usually I'm allowed to separate right before the meal for the meal. But since the Agadah is such a long time, it's Hefsek, so therefore I'm not allowed to until I get to the meal, right? Until I get to the meal. So therefore, according to a lot of Shitot, you're not allowed to. So this makes sense. The logic, what we're trying to say, that according to those Shitot, the Haggadah itself is Hefsek. Since the Haggadah is itself Hefsek, so what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that you're going to make a bracha again after the second cup. So that's why Ashkenazim do that. So the Ashkenazim do the bracha for the first one, the bracha of the second one because of the Hefsek, right, of the Haggadah, the bracha on the third one for sure. Now, the only question that they really have is on the fourth one. Because the fourth one is right after another. It's back to back. They just did the Koser Birkat Hamazon, and now they're doing on the Hallel. So again, obviously they're going to have their thing. Another concept where this arises is, what about Beracha Acharona or not? Why? You just drank a Revit. Now remember, you're drinking a full Revit. Usually, if you drink a full Revit, you have to do Beracha Acharona. Now, what are you relying upon? You're relying upon what you drank the first time around, right? So now, 1 second. If it already passes that time, and now you're by the second cup, it already passed. How long does it take from the beginning, right? From the Kiddush until Shulchan Aruch, until Magid, the end of Magid. How long does it take? All right, it takes 3 hours? What? Ooh, half an hour. What? At least an hour. Very good. At least. Yes, it's good that you said at least. Yeah. It doesn't take 72 minutes. So how long does it take? So how long does it take? Well, the entire Magid takes you 15 minutes.
The first or the second.
Yeah, first and the second, 15 minutes. 50. 50. I heard 15.
So, but then
15 minutes. You're a quick reader. What? No. Then you don't have to do a bracha. You don't have to do nothing. That's the question. The question is, we're taking our time to do the Haggadah. Remember, the Ikar is not Shulchan Aruch. What's the proof? Right? Because all of them are the same in the order. Right? The mitzvah is Vigata Levincha. The Magid is a mitzvah. The mitzvah is not Shulchan Aruch. A lot of people, they still go in the backwards. Backwards means that they rush everything. They get to the Suda. Suda takes 5 hours. And then, 1 second. I forgot. Okay, let's go. Finish. Yeah, yalla. Yeah, you finish up. No. The Magid is the entire Haggadah. The entire mitzvah is Vigata Levincha. The entire mitzvah is the Magid. Derech Hagav, by the way, we're going to have other mitzvot. To remember the 4 cups of wine, to remember this, there's actually 65 mitzvot that were brought down in some of the Acharonim on the night of Pesach. Some of them we don't always hold by, but there was a whole, a list, 65 different concepts. The cups, the netilat yadayim, what are you eating, the karpas, what each one is reminding you for. It's incredible. What did we just learn this year, right? The entire concept that why do we have the charoset? What is the charoset made out of? 2 things that we said in the Gemara. We just learned it now in Daf Yomi. What do we say? Apple, and what else? And it was the zecher latit and the apples. Why the apples? We just learned it in Daf Yomi. Mamash, a few days ago. I can count it on my hand. Right? Yeah? What do we learn? To remember about that the Jews, they used to go out in the forest and they were brought up under the apple trees. That's where we were born. What does that mean? Under the apple trees, that's where the women came, right? And they were, right, enticing their husbands, and they were giving birth, and they left them there. And they were able to grow, and they were able to get nourished, right? That was everything to do with the apples. So remembering those apples, that's why we do the charoset. That's one of the reasons of the Gemara. You remember that? Yeah? Good memory. Yeah? And the other one was zecher latit, for the clay. That the Paro used to use, throw them and use them as a clay, right, into the walls. They used to use the babies. So because of that, also we have the charoset. So there's 2 different reasons why do we have that. So all these things are all derech hagav. So now says Chachamim, what? Yeah, 100%. Also, the Manurat Chaim. What? Tachat tapuach. That's why the charoset is made out of the tapuach, and also teat, clay. Why is it made like a clay? Right? It's made like a clay that it has to be thick, like a. What do you, no, that's just the ingredient. The ingredients is everyone has their own recipe, but the apples is an integral part. The apples have to be there because of the tapuach, as we just mentioned. Okay, so now what happens though is that they say, but since the entire Agadah is sorech, since the entire Agadah was a necessity, so therefore it's not considered hefsek according to Sfaradim. And therefore, since it's not considered hefsek, we do bracha on the first cup. We go until the second cup, and even though it passed an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, it doesn't matter how long that you take. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do the bracha haruna, and you don't have to do bracha rishona. You just continue, and there's no problem. And that's our minhag. That's the minhag of the Sfaradim, right? That's what we're supposed to do. Okay, fine. No, that's what we're saying. Agadah is not hefsek. This entire thing is for the necessity of that night. Okay, that's what it says here. The Kaf HaChaim says, "She'afim shoez mamrubeh mishtiyat kos rishona the seudah." Even though a person is going to take a long time from the first cup until the seudah. Remember, the seudah is only going to be later on, right? You have the entire magid. Magid takes the longest time. After the magid is the second cup. So he says, but 1 second, you don't have to make a bracha acharona, mikat hamazon, and afterwards also potato. Why? וכן כתוב בשו"ת זכור ליצחק, שבסדר פסח, אף על פי שיש לנו זמן רב, ואפשר שהוא גם יותר משיעור עיכול, even though it's more than the time that it's going to digest. מכל מקום, כיוון שעוסק בעניין סעודת ליל פסח, since you're being עוסק in the entire concept of the night of the Pesach, ולא בעניינים אחרים and not in anything else, it's not considered hefsek. We're dealing with the Pesach. We're doing the Pesach. You can be there for hours, no problem. Yeah, and it does take time. It takes a long time. 50 minutes. You guys are fast readers. Yeah, very quick readers. Fine. Yeah? Okay, fine. Next. Okay, now, that was the minhag of the Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. Achila matzah. Okay, fine. We know that also to do with Heseba, we know that you have to actually do a Seba for the Afikoman as well, which means that when you're going to eat the Afikoman, you have to do a Seba. So a Seba is not only on the first matzah, but it's also on the last matzah, which is the Afikoman, which you're going to eat at the end. You also have to do a Seba. Right? They actually bring down that if a person did not say Birkat Hamazon and he forgot to do a Seba, he should eat again with a Seba. Okay? Which one? Yeah. What? No, without bracha. He's just going to do it again. Anyway, you don't do a bracha for the Afikuman. You say, right? What do you do? Zecher lekorban. Yeah, but Zecher lekorban pesach nechal lasova. So you come and you do the Afikuman. So you just do that. That's it. Yeah. Which? Kilel Zaken is a sandwich. The sandwich, but we're talking about the last one. That's why I started the Hilel Zaken and I realized we're doing the Afikuman, right? Which is the Zecher lekorban pesach nechal lasova. Okay, so then you do it again without a bracha. You would just say that again and again, then you eat it without any problem. If you already did do the Birkat Hamazon, they're already b'diavad. We just say that you don't have to eat it again. Okay. We didn't talk about the first 2 cups. Okay, so we're going to speak about that. Water, you're allowed to. We'll speak in a few minutes about that. Okay, but 1 second. So now, like this, because first the way that we're doing is we're first going through the concepts, and then afterwards we're going to go through the order of the actual seder. Okay. So now, like this. This is to do with Heseba. Another interesting halacha is Heseba by achilat karpas. Do you have to do Heseba by eating karpas or not? So the Shibbolei Aleket brings down that you don't have to do Heseba for eating of the karpas, right?
It's just for where the
matzah and the cups of wine.
Yeah.
Cups of wine is in matzah, and now achilat karpas. 1 second. So Shibbolei Aleket says no. The Budaham says yes, and there were also Geonim that said that also. So now, very good. So how do you do it? So therefore, right, because of that, some people say that you don't have to do it, right? That's the Chazon Ovadia and everything. However, though, the Or Letzion brings down that you should do half. Half with Heseba and half without Heseba. Now, why exactly, right? Why? It all depends what's the reason. Why is it what's the reason, right? It's very, very simple. If you remember, by Maror, you do not have to do a Seba. Why don't you have to do a Seba? So Rashi and the Rashbam brings down, when we say that by Maror, you don't have to do it, he says, because the Maror is Zechel le'avdut. Yeah, it's avdut, it's subjugation. And the Seba is you're a free man. So if you're a free man, you're not going to do, it's a conundrum. You understand? It's oxymoron. You know what oxymoron is? Yeah, you know who the moron is? No, it's an oxymoron. Oxymoron means that it's like the two opposites. Right? A cliché? How do you say? Contradiction. It's a contradiction. Cherut means I'm a free person. I'm eating maror, that means I'm a slave. I'm bitter. You're free or you're bitter? Decide. So there's no eseba when you're eating maror. Okay? Very good. Somebody asked me, is he always patur from because the mother-in-law is there, he's always patur. Yeah, he doesn't have to eat the maror. He's got the maror. Imagine if he lives with the maror. All year round, he's yotzei yechovah. Yeah? So, yeah, all year round, he's yotzei yechovah. He doesn't have to eat the maror at all. Yeah? Fine. Anyway, but okay. Right, but that's mother-in-law jokes. You keep it to the side. Make sure your wives don't listen. Fine. So now the question, though, is that which one? Karpas. What do you do with the karpas? So now it all depends. What's the reasoning for karpas? So we didn't see it here, but when we're going to speak about the entire concept of karpas, there's going to be a whole bunch of different reasons why we do karpas. Some people say that we do karpas. It says over here, why do we do the karpas? One of them is it says over here, right? Eker means that we have a recognition. What are we doing? All of a sudden we're dipping things. So the children are going to come and they're going to start asking, what? We're dipping. No, we're dipping. Karpas, everyone dips. Yeah? No, that's the charoset and the maror. That's not karpas. Karpas, everyone dips. Right? So what happens is that, right, we're finishing now. Yeah? So what happens is that the concept here is very, very simple. If you're going to tell me now that it's just a recognition, so why not? Right? The opposite. We want the children to start asking a whole bunch of questions. So, okay, you could do it. But sometimes the karpas could actually mean many different things. For example, sometimes what do we do the karpas for? Some of the reasons why do we do the karpas is zecher leketonet hapasim she'asa Yaakov liYosef shebesibata nitgalgel v'yardu avotim mitzrayim. Meaning, why are we doing karpas? Because he says, right, the Gemara brings this down, that because the karpas is, that's what the Ben Ish Chai brings down, שטיבול הראשון של karpas בחומץ הוא זכר לקושי השיבוד שהיה בשביל מכירת יוסף. Because of all the shibud, that means we went down to Egypt because of Yosef. That means everything was the ketonet pasim, karpas, right? Ketonet, pasim, karpas, pasim, ketonet. You put them together, an acronym, karpas, meaning we're trying to remember that everything was because of the sale of Yosef. Since everything was of the sale of Yosef, that's all you have to come, and we have the bitterness. So one second, if karpas is also because of the bitterness, so then what? You don't have to do a seba, right? Because it's the same thing like maror. So you don't have to do a seba. In the name of another one of the chachamim, they said שהנלחמים הקדמונים בניצחונם היו נושאים את העשב זה על ראשם, והוא להזכיר ניצחון ניסה למצרים. The opposite now. When people used to go to war, they used to win. They used to take out the karpas and they used to put it on their heads, and they used to show everybody the karpas. Imagine Ashkenazim, they're putting a potato on their head, right, or a carrot. Yeah. At least it's a celery. At least it's nice. Yeah, straight up, right? So what happens, right? You have a beautiful celery. I won. We won the war. So now here, it's not because of shibud. If it's not because of subjugation, for sure you should do a seba, right? Because it's something good. A third reason, this was the cure. Meaning they took this vegetable and they used it as a cure, right? Remember, everything was homeopathia. Everything was natural. Right? So therefore, they use this as a cure. So that's also a good reason. Number 4, kolbo v'aruchot chaim, karpas is an otikon, samech perach. What does that mean? Avodat parech, because savlut, right? Or the shishim ribo, the 600,000 that avodat parech, right? That they were working so hard, right? And the Abu Daham actually says shishim ribo. That's Abu Daham. So because of that, again, this is a negative. Meaning it all depends what's the reason of the karpas. If you tell me that the reason the karpas is something positive, so then do a seba. If you're going to tell me it's negative, don't do a seba. Because of the different shitot, there's another 2 reasons. The Maril brings down Yerek Nikar karpas, shehu epach besof hakaitz, gedelim bo kotzim. It's like it's very similar to the teven, the straw that they were using in Egypt. And the last one was Agu in the name of the Maharil, to take karpas, the fishu badai enomar. It's not bitter. So we know that it's not maror. Meaning we already know there's not maror. So according to all the different reasons, there's positives and negatives. If you're going to learn the negatives, you don't have to do a sabah. If you learn the positives, you do. So because of that, half. Okay, that's halakha l'maaseh. What we should do, we should take half of it, right? We come and we do the karpas, we dip it, we eat it besabah. We come, we dip again, right? And we eat it without a sabah. You do both and you don't have any problem. Okay, we continue with the